Hello, everybody, and welcome to Detective Comics Before Batman Podcast, Episode 1, where we are going to talk about old Slam Bradley in an issue called The Streets of Chinatown. Now, with that, this is an anthology comic. Before Batman showed up in issue number 27, there were a ton of characters in this book. I'll go through a list of the other ones in this first issue. You had Speed Saunders and the River Patrol, Cosmo, the Phantom of Disguise, Brett Lawton, Bruce Nelson, Gumshoe Gus, Bart Regan Spy, Eagle-Eyed Jake, and Buck Marshall, all of them detectives in their own right. We'll be talking mainly in this podcast about Slam Bradley. The story that we're going to talk about in this number 1 is The Streets of Chinatown. And I'm going to go through a little bit about Sam Bradley. But before I do that, I will just tell you that Slam Bradley combines some really good things and some really, really awful things. I love hard-boiled detectives. I love those gruff, private eyes type deal. So that part of Slam Bradley, I do enjoy. The awful racism and sexism, I'm not really that down with. And there's a lot of it here. So at points, this podcast may get a little bit uncomfortable as we go through. Now, what I'm going to do to lighten the mood and probably drive everyone nuts when we get an overly racist or sexist thing, and there's a lot, we will hit the nonsense horn because it is nonsense. And there's been a lot of people who have talked about Slam Bradley, mainly because when we go into this, you'll see who created him, or at least did do his appearances. It really goes against their main character. I'm not here to do a sort of, investigation of why he's like he is, why he was done. There are reasons. It does not in any way excuse anything of this. And DC themselves pretty much wants to distance themselves from all these issues. If you ever went into the DC Universe app and, hey, I want to see what happened. Oh, they start with 27. It always does. They ended up going to put out a deluxe edition. That was where I stole the name Detective Comics Before Batman. It was going to come out. It was announced. They had everything worked out. They had forewords, all these things, and then it was canceled. And it was canceled because somebody said, this stuff is really bad. And some of the stuff really is, but we're going to go through it and we'll hit the old nonsense horn when that becomes nonsense. But here we go. This is Samuel Emerson Slam Bradley. He is a detective, a private detective, that has appeared in various comic book series published by DC Comics, conceived by Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson, you might not like who, and developed by Superman creators Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. There's the ding. If I had the ding, I'll roll the dice. There you go. The character first appeared in Detective Comics number 1 in March of 1937, is depicted as a hard-bitten, tough private eye who loves working for dames, but prefers the platonic company of his boy sidekick, Shorty Morgan. We're going to see a little bit of the origin of that partnership in this number 1 issue. And Slam Bradley was outlined by Wheeler Nicholson in a May 13th, 1936 letter to Jerry Siegel. So he penned a letter because old Siegel, Jerry Siegel, and Joe Shuster had created the DC character Dr. Occult, and they wanted more work from him. So the letter says, we need some more work from you. We are getting out at least 1 new magazine in July, so they're going to come out with something new, and possibly 2. The first one is definitely in the works. It'll contain longer stories, but fewer of them. From you and Shuster, we need 16 pages monthly. We want a detective hero called Slam Bradley. He is to be an amateur, called in by the police to help unravel difficult cases. He should combine both brains and brawn, be able to think quickly and reason cleverly, and able as well to slam bang his way out of a barroom brawl or mob attack. Take every opportunity to show him in a torn shirt with swelling biceps and powerful torso a la Flash Gordon. The pages are to run the same size as new comics, but to contain 8 panels a page instead of 6. And Jerry Siegel gets this. They got to come up with a concept of the character. They do go pretty much with that idea that Wheeler Nicholson wants a hard-boiled detective who gets his shirt ripped. And really, Slam Bradley, I don't think he owns a lot of shirts. So when a shirt does get ripped, he wears it through the entire issue, pretty much all ripped, his chest, all that stuff going. There was nothing in that letter about being overly racist, right? And nothing about, I want him to, be real sexist and treat women like crap. No. That seems to be Shuster and Siegel's take on the character. Now, Joe Shuster must have gotten the word from Siegel and said, longer stories with more panels. Like, how much more am I getting paid for this? He ends up drawing this, and this is a year before Superman would debut. The character looks a lot like Superman. Thank God he acts nothing like him. And one of the reasons and one of the sign of the times type deal, like I said, I'm not here to go into anything about the logic of why this racism and whatever, but it is the yellow peril that it's dealing with back in 1937, where people were getting the bad idea that the Asians of the world were going to take over. Everybody Asian was bad. They were it's, the ignorance turned into racism there. So that's pretty much what we're going to deal mostly with Slam Bradley, but he's also sexist as well. But if you've listened to all those old-time radio detectives or even seen some of the old-time movies, that was common for these type of characters as well. The character first appeared as one of several ongoing features in the debut issue of Detective Comics, originally an anthology series, in March of 1937. He debuted a year before Superman's first appearance and 2 years before Batman would become the title's lead feature. The character's adventures did continue. It's not as if Batman shows up in issue number 27 and they're like, oh, well, Slam, nice knowing you, smell you later. He actually kept going for over a decade, up until October of 1949, and issue number 152 of Detective Comics was his last appearance in Detective Comics, replaced by everybody's favorite Roy Raymond TV detective. I wonder if that the detective he's trying to figure out TV. That's all he was doing, all that. Bradley would not make another significant appearance for over 32 years, and his sidekick, Shorty Morgan, seems to have disappeared pretty much completely, which is a shame because, to me, he is the best part of this whole deal with Slam Bradley. And this is, again, Slam Bradley, The Streets of Chinatown, written by Jerry Siegel, pencils and inks by Joe Shuster. And so we start out, and it's, I say classic. And again, when I say these things, I am not judging or anything, but the classic Detective Comics #1 cover with the Asian fella there that you ended up having Jean Luen Yang. This is something that he wanted to go against, and in New Superman, he did. He ended up having a arc where this was kind of attacked by New Superman, things like that, which was pretty cool. You go into the story, though, and again, remember what they were told to do. Ripped shirt, bulging biceps, and just a guy who can get himself out of a brawl. Well, in this first page, I mean, just the art. If you get a chance to read this, we're going to start. It is the worst racial depiction of Asians pretty much you've ever seen. And Slam has one that he's whirling around by the leg, and he's knocking out the others with that. And he's like, so you want to play, eh? He's very gruff. And it just sets you up and says, hey, you have Slam. He's off tangling with a mob of Celestials. Yep, who, they knives flash, fists fly. He's outnumbered, but he's having a swell time, and he is. This is Slam gets mad. This fight gets interrupted by the police. They bust in, the Bluecoats bust in, like, hey, we came to get you there. Slam, stop your fighting. And he's like, what? What are you doing? I'm in the middle of a good fight. Hey, Sergeant Kelly. I was having a great old time here. He's having so much fun beating up people. But the police need him for something. Well, before they get to tell him, one of the Asian guys is going to stab Slam in the back, and you end up having Sergeant Kelly yell, hey, watch out behind you. Slam turns and disarms the guy and then grabs him by the arm and slams him into the ground. And Slam being his nickname, it fits. He pretty much is slamming everything he can touch. So now he's upset, and he says, what the heck did you come in here and interrupt my fight? I know that you almost saved me there. You have Sergeant. Almost? I was the one who saved you. It's like, no. Why did you show up here? Very conveniently. And Sarge says, well, it's Captain. Captain Frawley sent me to get you. Big case. We got a big case for you. So get downtown and go to the police station. So Slam goes off, and we get right to the police station. As he opens the police station door, everybody's greeting him. The fellow policeman. You end up having another guy there. You have the lady working the switchboard for the dispatch stuff. And you have Shorty Morgan, who is such a comical little character. Everybody else is drawn very well. I'll say everybody that is white is drawn very somewhat realistic. Shorty's just this real short, cartoony character that looks like he should be on a Saturday morning cartoon. And he's there. He's got a Sherlock Holmes hat on and a duffel bag. And he ends up seeing Slam. It's like, hey there, can I be your assistant? And Slam just said, aside, runt, for the 100th time, no. And just shoves him aside. And he is a guy where you have Schuster drawing Slam Bradley. Slam does not do anything casually. Slam will throw a door open. Anytime he's walking, you can tell that it's so fast-paced. And I'll give Schuster a lot of credit for this art because you can tell he is in a hurry. He's always got his fist clenched. Even when he's walking, he is ready to throw down at the drop of a hat. He ends up going into Captain Frawley's office and says, what's in your mind, Frawley? And there's a lady there. And it's a classic 1930s looking lady, very fancy. And he ends up saying, this here is Rita Carlisle, the daughter of the Carlisle chain store. She's going to tell you what she needs from you herself. Slam interrupts and say, a dime store princess? Never met one of them before. There we go. And she says, well, I'm not interested in your social life. I have a job for you. So we're waiting to hear the job. In the meantime, you end up going out of the office into the main police area where Shorty is telling the radio dispatcher how much he should be the guy who teams with Slam because he did a mail order course in scientific crime detection. And with him, Slam would have science at his fingertips. But then she says, yeah, but he'd also have to deal with you. I'm like, oh my. Well, as you go in, I said it earlier, but I'll point this out as well. Slam looks exactly like Superman. The dispatcher, Rita Carlisle, the dime store print, they all look exactly like Lois Lane. There's not a lot of difference in any of the things going on here that would end up being main characters in the Superman run. You could even think that the Captain Frawley, even looks a little like Perry. So you have those going on. Well, you go back in the office to see what exactly this job that Rita has. And Rita's job for Slam Bradley, as you go back, I want to also tell you, you end up when Slam goes into the office, the captain's sitting at his desk, right? He's going to talk to him. When we go back into the office after hearing Shorty and his mail order scientific course, Slam's now seated at the desk. He must have pushed the captain and has his feet up on the desk. This guy does what he wants. And you end up having Rita say she needs Slam for such an important case. She needs to have her poodle, Mimi, guarded because she's afraid somebody's going to try to kidnap Mimi, the poodle. Slam is pissed. He jumps up, jumping blue blazes. This is what I was dragged from a good fight. Slams his hand on the desk, starts yelling and screaming, says basically, I am not going to play a poodle's nursemaid. That's something the captain there would be up to. I don't know what that means. I'm not hitting that for that, but who knows what he's going with that. And you have Rita so upset. Oh my, how dare he talk to me like this? Captain, you fire him now. And in a good way of, introducing the character of Slam here, the captain says, I can't fire him. He's not a policeman. He doesn't work for us. He's freelance. He just does what he does. I wanted Rita to say, well, then don't hire him anymore. That essentially is firing him, but they don't go that far because Rita storms out and then Slam basically says to the captain, if you do that again, I'll kill you. He's just like, would you send that? Why am I involved in this nonsense? I was knocking heads. And the captain says, well, she didn't tell me what the job was. She just said, I need the best man and I sent for you. Doesn't say much for the police department, but also makes you think that maybe the captain should have asked what the job was first. And it does say that Rita is going to pay a lot of money for this, which I wonder if she does at the end, because the person who ends up on the job is Shorty. Because when Slam exits the captain's office, Shorty is right there again. And listen, I have scientific training. I can help you. I can help you. Listen, I told you no. And then he goes, wait a second. I might have a job for you. You know what? I do. Here you go. Take my card to Rita Carlisle's mansion. Give it to her butler and you'll be in. You'll get the job. So he's all excited. Success at last. His hat is flying off. Very cartoony. You go off to Rita's mansion where she's there, probably reading the gossip pages there. She's reading something, and I should hit that for myself for saying that, but she's mulling over the awfulness of Slam Bradley. Now, the way it's written, you know that she already has the hots for Slam Bradley, but she's like, and really it goes with the idea, nobody's ever treated me like this. She's like, of all the conceited, egotistical, arrogant fools, that Slam Bradley's the worst. And then all of a sudden the butler comes in, Madame, a card for you from a person to see you. She's like, Slam Bradley, oh my, get him in here. And it's Shorty. She's like, you? Where's Slam? No. Slam told me to come for this job. I don't know what it is, but boy, I'm excited. What is it? Oh, well, here's my poodle, Mimi. You're going to guard Mimi. Now, the big thing here is that Mimi ends up fully falling in love with Shorty. Yeah, he is, this little poodle loves Shorty more than she'll ever love Rita, her owner. I mean, starts licking him and he's like, is this what I went to scientific crime detection courses for? I spent a lot of money on those. But yeah, he is going to watch a poodle. Now, the idea of why this poodle is, is it going to be kidnapped, killed, whatnot, run away, never really is fully explained. And the poodle does not, you get the setup as if the poodle is what's going to lead the story forward. That is not true. The poodle actually becomes a big savior for Shorty in a minute. But the big thing that pushes the whole deal going is that Rita decides that they're all going to go out for a little fresh air and a little shopping. And so also, you realize at this point, if Rita would just stay home and keep Mimi at home, she wouldn't need anybody to watch Mimi. It's when she goes out on these ridiculous excursions. She's a shopaholic. And so she goes to the worst part of Chinatown, is what Shorty says. Why are we here? Why are we at the worst part of Chinatown? You shouldn't get out of the car. We're going to be in trouble. And Rita doesn't want to listen. She's like, listen, nobody's going to mess with me. I'm a pretty tough cookie myself, but I'm going to go into that antique shop there because I see that antique in the window. I must have it because I am Rita Carlisle, dime store princess. So she goes in. Shorty keeps telling her, no, don't go in. Worst part of Chinatown. And she's like, nah, I'm going in. You watch Mimi. It'll all be fine. Well, she doesn't come out. She goes in. It's over an hour. She hasn't come out. Shorty starts to get worried, says to the driver, yeah, I think I'd better go in and see what's going on. See what the deal is. The driver's like, yeah, that's a good idea. There's the little thing of, well, I'm going to keep Mimi in the car here because, something could happen to her. Well, he's not going with his job, but he goes in. And really the dialogue in this is, bad. But the first part of this is the worst dialogue you could ever have, and the horn is going to be hit because he goes in and says to the guy behind the main counter, hey, is there a Miss Carlisle in here? She walked in about an hour ago and she never came out. This guy behind the counter goes, very sorry, no see missy, you sclam. Hey. So he's like, that's weird. Like, she came in. I know she came in. She disappeared. I better go call Slam. So he ends up calling Slam. Slam's pissed. You bonehead, why'd you let her go in there? That's ridiculous. I'll be right over. Comes over again, walking, fist clenched, very quickly. Yeah, he says, is this the place? Yeah, that's it. They go in, and as they arrive, the guy who was behind the counter, who in my mind, after this, speaks fine. I think that he was putting on a show there, says to another Asian guy there, hey, go tell the master that Slam Bradley is here and he's about to enter the shop. And so they're like, okay, we'll go. So you end up having Slam go in. Now, up until this point, really, all he has going here is that old Shorty, who he hated 2 minutes ago, said that Rita went in and disappeared. So Slam goes in and, like, a normal person, just starts wrecking house. He starts destroying every vase, lamps. He's just destroying everything, yelling at this guy behind the counter. And says, where is she? What'd you do with her? The girl came in. What's happening? The guy's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Please, help. I'm being attacked. And you end up having to Slam pick him up. I mean, grab him by the collar and pick him up in the air. And then basically says, I am going to paint the wall with your face. Okay, that's hard-boiled. That's okay. Already, his shirt, probably because of himself, is starting to rip in the front. You see his chest. You end up then having to go down that route of awfulness, where Slam then says to Shorty on an aside, he thinks he's not going to talk. Well, I am going to cut off his pigtail because they think then that they'll never get to join their ancestors. The guy doesn't like that. He starts yelling, no, I'll talk. Actually, I talk. I could. But he's like, it's behind the curtain. There's a secret passage. It leads to my master, the Honorable Fui on Yui. That is the bad guy for the issue. Fui on Yui. He has the girl. And then you end up having Shorty. Oh no, Fui on Yui. Why, he's the toughest Tong killer in Chinatown. And Slam says, all right, well, I'm going to go in there and make his ears wiggle. Oh, God. I don't think this podcast is going to last very long. So they say right behind that curtain, there's a secret passage. Well, Slam realizes, I think I'm being set up, grabs the guy and throws him through the curtain. And then when him and Shorty go through, the guy's there dead with a huge sword in his back. It was a trap. It was a death trap set up to kill them. That's why that guy didn't want to go first, even though that really never came through in there. But Slam says, well, here we are. When in Rome, let's grab that sword out of that guy's back because that's going to come in handy. Kind of doesn't, but they end up having that, and they are going to start walking through this. It looks like a cavern in the back of this shop. I mean, I'm talking about this is just a whole series of death traps it's like Dungeons and Dragons in here. So you end up having Mimi, the dog, doesn't look like a poodle, comes in. She had jumped out and she's upset. The poodle is upset because her beloved Shorty has disappeared himself. So Mimi is on the case. The dog is hightailing it in to save Shorty. They go a couple more steps and the lights go out. Now, they are in this weird cavern type deal. I guess there's lights. It seems weird. The lights go out. They realize, oh no, this is probably one of these death traps. Please tell me, Shorty, you're not afraid of the dark. He is. He just yells. He says, I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm just a little nervous. And then all of a sudden he goes, oh no, somebody's got me. And then when you end up with the lights come up for no reason, Shorty almost fell into a pit. He actually was crawling, it looks like, and he ended up almost falling into a pit. When he said, oh, they got me, it was because Mimi came and wanted to pretty much be like the copper tone dog and grab Shorty's pants and pull him. She saved him. And she ends up, and it's funny too, because at the one point, she will not leave his side. And he's like, man, she sticks closer to me like my vaccinations. All right. So they end up being saved by Mimi. Slam, he didn't need no saving. But there's a little ledge they have to crawl across. And you have Shorty with Mimi in the front and Slam behind. And as they go through and get to the other side, all of a sudden a hole opens up in the wall with a arm that has a knife and it's about to stab Slam in the back. Shorty yells, look out. Slam turns around, sees it, disarms the arm, and then breaks it. And then they just move on. Nothing ever like check what this is, how you can go. Maybe no. They just move on to the next room. Again, I'm telling you, this is like the greatest Dungeons and Dragons module I've ever seen. In the next room, they're attacked by a dragon. And really, through this whole thing, the most important role of Shorty is to shit his pants anytime something bad goes on. Oh my gosh, he starts screaming. And Slam realizes right away, probably because dragons aren't real, realizes that it's just a painting, of a luminous painting on the wall of the cave. Thank God whoever painted it, who did a pretty good job, left the paint can right there, because that gives Slam an idea. They're going to crawl up into the rafters where they are and wait it out. They're going to wait, and when one of these Asian killers that are after them come by, you have Slam drip a bit of the luminous paint on the guy's back of his tunic, and now they can follow him. And not just follow him, there's not really a lot of multiple paths here. So it's not following them so they know where to go. It's following because they know that this guy will know of the traps. So if they see this guy go into a room and stick to the right, they'll stick to the right. If he goes in and watches out for something, you get the idea. They're just doing this to be able to get through here without really dealing with. And I think that it is old Jerry Siegel saying, I don't want to deal with just a whole entire issue of them avoiding traps and almost getting killed. So that kind of gets rid of that. They do follow this guy, and there's boulders falling, all these things going on. Well, as they're following this guy, they realize from hearing that ahead of them, there must be a bunch of guys. There's a bunch of guys now who are gathered. Oh no, what are we going to do? How can we get through a room with a bunch of these guys? Slam doesn't say the plan, but just starts to paint Shorty with the luminous paint and then says, okay, go and pretend you're a ghost. So he runs in and ends up, it looks like he legitimately is going, na, 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 as he goes in. And you end up having all of the Asian guys get very upset again because they are superstitious celestials. And they get the hell out of there. They run. I mean, they drop their knives, everything. They drop a what's it called? A lantern. And that's what Slam ends up being able to grab onto. And so that they can go forward and be able to see old Shorty's so happy with himself. The weird thing is the paint seems to have worn off already, but they end up going to the next room and they see a guy sleeping. That's what Shorty says. And no, Slam has to remind us that his celestials, they're always hepped up on dope. And that's why he's passed out. So he ends up grabbing this guy's tunic. He's going to disguise himself. They end up separating. Shorty goes off on his own as Slam looks and actually finds that Rita has been captured. And in this big cavernous thing of caves and passages, it ends up into what looks like a Roman gladiatorial arena where they have her tied up in the middle of it and are whipping her. What they want is her signature. They don't say, that this signature will sign over the 5 and dimes. It doesn't say that this signature will allow them to use a bank account. They're probably going to use it for all that stuff, if not more, because they just want her signature. She will not give it, and they are just beating the crap out of her. Slam sees this and gets very, very upset and yells to, which is Fooey on Yui and his men, I'm coming at you yellow rats. And goes in and just starts beating the crap out of everyone. He grabs the one guy's whip, whips him with his own whip, says jump high, ends up grabbing the other one by the ponytail, swinging him around in a whirlwind that knocks off everybody. Everybody's getting just the crap kicked out of him. In the meantime, Shorty at some point accidentally looks into a mirror, it says, and sees his reflection. It scares the crap out of him. He craps his pants and runs off, where he runs off into another Asian guy, where he is saved again by Mimi, who barks. That distracts the guy, and then he hits him over the head with a pipe. Then he decides that he's going to use his scientific abilities, and he goes and finds a thing of hot tar and ends up pouring it on the ground. And so he has all this tar on the ground. His idea pretty much is using it as like a fly trap. If anybody comes by, they'll be stuck in the tar. He says, this is what I call using my brains. In the meantime, in this big arena, Slam has beaten everybody up except Fooey on Yui, who tries to escape, while you have Slam go talk to Rita, and she's like, how can I help you? And he's like, some other time, dame. Fooey and Yui's trying to sneak away. We got to stop him. Now, there is there's a really bad bit of narration here, and I'm telling you, I will read it. I'm starting to think that this is going to be the first and last. This is now just another episode of So Bad It's Good, but it's not. It's awful. The narration just says the Chinks routed, Slam frees Rita. It's just awful. It's so awful. Fuyon Yui goes off, and Slam chases him down, and luckily, Fooey gets stuck in the tar that you ended up having, Shorty put down there. And so they're sitting there, Fuyon Yui's yelling, he's pissed off. You end up having Slam say, you know what, Shorty, swell work, we're partners. Shorty gets all upset. He starts jumping, and he frees himself from the tar. And then when Fuyon Yui says no one captures Fuyon Yui, he says, I did, so Fooey on Yui, right? Fooey on Yui. And then that's the end. And then because you end up at this point, Slam's shirt completely ripped off. It's just hanging in threads. And he basically says to Rita, come here, dame. And they start just making out. They just start making out. And you end up having Rita say, I'm sorry I've been such a snob. You are wonderful. And then Shorty goes with the idea because, right, a couple panels before when Slam says, you're now my partner, we're going to share everything. Shorty wants a threesome. He's like, hey, I thought you said we share everything. Not that, buddy. And he pushes him away. And then several days later, where it looks as if possibly Slam has been slamming for that. I mean, he seems to be at the apartment. They may be picking up the reward. Who knows? But you end up having Rita said, okay, now that our sweet-tempered Chinese friend is jailed for abduction and seeking to secure my signature, for his purposes, I'd like to see more of you. And you end up having Slam says, sorry, Rita. Shorty and I love trouble, but not Dame Trouble. See you again. Maybe. And that is it. That's how it ends. And the funny thing is, it takes a couple of issues before that joke of I thought we share everything with Slam making out with ladies at the end of episodes. It takes a while for that to actually fade away. That's something that is a running joke through there, and I just dropped my mouse, so I have no way to end this. But yeah, it's bad. It's really racist, and it's really bad. But I'm telling you, Shorty actually makes it a little more bearable. But I still, if we go through these, this is just to see what did come before old Batman, and also it's Siegel and Schuster. Those two things kind of make it interesting to go through. It's pretty bad. You have to go into it realizing that this is awful, and just go with that and just pretty much each turn page see how awful it is. But we'll see if we continue this. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed a bit of that, and I'd like to hear the nonsense horn. As I'm doing this, I am desperately trying to get my mouse with my foot. So I'm going to go off from here. I'm going to grab it real quick. You'll never be able to tell. See, I am back. I'm back with it, and my mouse pad fell too, so I'll be back in a sec. And I'm back again so that I can play the outro theme. Thanks, everybody. I hope you did enjoy this for what it was. Thanks, and I'll talk to you later.